Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. How are you? Hey, let's go.
Let's go to the elbow thing.
How's it going? All right. Come on, let's go.
I was looking for you. Wow, it's been a while.
It has been a while. And, hold on. Let's just make a photo while we're here. It'll be funny. Okay, so 1, 2. What? No.
I'm doing the agent
No. Nice. Nice. Okay, so I've got Tugsbayar. How do I say your name? Last name?
That's a pretty decent way to pronounce it.
So how would you say?
I would say it as Khaliun Tugsbayar.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, my name is actually Khaliun Tugsbayar, but I shortened it to K because, it's just an easier way to get it across to people.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so I've got you on Shooting It Raw, which is very exciting.
Shooting It Raw.
Shooting It Raw.
So how'd you come up with the name, actually?
Well, I was preparing a porn.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like a bad porno, because when I tell people I'm going on Shooting It Raw, I mean, it's not exactly the...
That never occurred to me until one of my gay... No, it's true. Until one of my gay friends said, is this like a porn thing? And I was like, no, it's not. It's actually, it relates back to photography.
Well, you've derailed from your career path a little bit.
But no, it goes back to photography, and raw being a raw file of an image, right? So of a camera image.
Cool.
So the mechanics is that we start with a photo, and then we go into just whatever we talk about.
Yeah.
So in this case, you sent me this unbelievable photograph, which I need to explain and then sort of say, because it's a podcast.
Yeah, of course.
So what we see is the bottom third of the image is this very flat plane, which I haven't seen before. It's very rolling, kind of dark green. There are three on the right side. There are 3 flagpoles with 3 different flags. Yeah. There's one yurt and another yurt. Big, beautiful sky. It's probably, I'd say, 10 in the morning. I know you're Mongolian, and this looks, I'm assuming, like a photo from Mongolia.
Yeah, 100% right. Yeah.
So what is that?
Actually, I don't know. There was no intent in the picture. I just wanted to take a picture of my home country, and this was, I believe, two summers ago. I usually go back home every summer just to revisit and see my family. And every July we have our National Independence Day. So we have which is Natam. It's a big holiday. Everyone eats, feasts, drinks. We have archery. We have wrestling. So usually during this holiday period, everyone just goes out to the countryside and they just get fucking beasted. Right?
Okay.
And then they see horse racing. Nice. It's a lot of back to our roots kind of vibe.
Okay.
So this is just one of those celebrations. So people actually go out and build their own tents. Actually, this is from a corporation.
Okay, yeah.
It's a little bit of a plug, but it's a family friends, and they just invite people over, and they just have sour milk tea, salt milk tea. I don't know if you know what that is. It's milk tea but with salt.
Salt, yeah.
It's a national drink, and we eat bots, boshor, all of our traditional meals. And I don't know, this is the perfect way to describe Mongolian plains, because you go outside the city and it's just...
There's nothing.
There's nothing.
It's amazing. No electrical poles.
Nothing.
No... I mean, there's one yurt there that's right there, and then it's just... I think of it as in Canada, the prairies. But this is just so much sky.
This is what I grew up with, man.
Okay.
My childhood was this.
How far of a drive from your original home where you grew up to this place?
Not too far, actually. So you have the city center, which I think hosts 1 million something people. It's a very small city. And then
what's the name of the city?
Ulaanbaatar.
Okay.
Which is Ulaanbaatar, I guess.
Yeah.
Whitewash it.
Sure.
But the way to say it is Ulaanbaatar.
Yeah.
And you drive out, actually, whichever direction you go, just an hour drive, and then you have, this scenery. To your north, you have, gorgeous giant Turtle Rock, which is actually a big hotspot for tourists. So yeah, this is about an hour's drive, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you just continue driving, you'll have the Gobi Desert in one end, and then you'll have Hufskul, which is like the clearest lake in the entire world.
Wow.
It's so clear, you see down and you can see the rocks.
Sure.
So yeah, this is what I grew up with. Like
okay, well, put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Can you shoot a bow?
Shoot it raw?
A bow.
Oh, a bow. Shoot it raw.
Can you shoot it raw? No, come on.
Can I shoot a bow? No, unfortunately not. No,
For shame.
But I can ride a horse. I think that's just instinctually.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, now, with or without a saddle?
With a saddle.
With a saddle, okay.
I'm not that hardcore.
I want you to tell me the story of your teeth.
Oh, right. Okay, so...
Best story in the world.
I think I would have pretty decent teeth.
You have great...
It's okay.
Very nice teeth.
Nothing to be ashamed of.
No, beautiful teeth, yeah.
Yeah, so Mongolians have a weird ritual of when, like, kids are, losing their baby teeth, you just wrap it around in, like, a sack of fat. Would you say a sack of fat? Like, it's just a
strip?
A strip of fat. You roll it around and then you feed it to a dog. And when you're feeding it to the dog, you just say, I wish I have as good teeth as you. And then eventually, somehow, it maybe works, maybe is not correlated, whatever.
I have 5 dogs, and what I love about dogs is that when you look at their jaws, they have these, like, icebergs. Like, their teeth are like these perfect iceberg-shaped things in their mouth. So the older the dog is, the more sort of stained it gets or whatever. But with a young dog, you could totally see this beautiful, amazing teeth. But you tell me the story, and I think about. So, do you ever look through the poo to find the tooth?
No, I don't.
Because it's gonna be
I haven't.
there.
No, that's true. But I guess this is just our way of like the.
This poor dog is giving.
Yes, so don't call PETA on me because this is just a age-long tradition. I don't know if people still do it, but when I was younger, my grandparents, so they just have like the weirdest stuff. Actually,
Well, you have very nice teeth. Okay,
Thank
so
you.
the great photo. Oh my goodness, great photo. Let's see the other photo. Okay, now for this other photograph, so what we see in the foreground is a bush. Behind that, a bit of a yard, I guess, and then more bushes. And then what seems to be a more traditional-looking house, and behind that is more sort of normal, modern buildings. What is this image? Why this image?
So this is actually just right outside me and my dad's favorite cafe. It's called Millie's Cafe. Millie's, and they serve the best burger in all of UB Ulaanbaatar, which is our city. And so it's actually situated somewhere in the center of the city. And I don't know, it was just a cool juxtaposition of like old versus new, because Mongolia, I mean, it's by far no Hong Kong. Like, we're still developing, we're still in the middle of like coming out of poverty, and I mean, I guess infrastructure is still quite bad, right? But I don't know, like for me it's a cool way to just look at my city. Like, you have that heritage there that's untouched, and people usually don't pay much attention to it because like they're still so fascinated with the idea of development.
Do you know what that building's for?
I think that might have been like, it's a museum. I know that's a museum, but I don't know the history behind it. Yeah. I just like the juxtaposition.
No, for sure.
Eventually they're probably gonna like tear it down and like build like a giant skyscraper, which is what they have been doing for a long time.
Like in Hong Kong.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I just liked how it looked. And
that's
great. That's what it is.
So, can you tell what these flags are? Are these just flags of... are these Mongolian flags in the background?
It looks like South African flag, no?
Okay.
I'm not quite sure, actually.
Okay, now, so when we met, you were working at the shared co-working space. When you speak, your accent sounds very international, sort of whatever. So you grew up in Mongolia?
Yeah, I did. I guess I would have to kind of give you a little bit of like a background information on my family.
Sure.
So my grandma has 5 grandkids, and the first 2 were boys, and she was like, I really want a granddaughter. And so she looked at her 3 daughters, and she said, whichever one of you births me a daughter, like, I will provide everything for them.
Oh, wow.
And then my mom just so happened to get pregnant.
You were the lucky
granddaughter.
I was the
lucky dog, yeah.
And, not dog, granddaughter. Granddaughter.
Granddaughter, yeah. So, immediately I think she was just very infatuated with me. I don't know if that's the right word to say, but I was always like very lucky in the sense that my grandma made sure to provide for my education.
Nice.
So my parents actually never had to worry about like funding my school tuition fee because my grandma just wanted to make sure she provided me.
That's kind of alienating to her other grandchildren.
Yeah,
no?
exactly. That's what I grew up with. A lot of hostility, a little bit. Yeah, because she didn't make it a secret that I was her favorite. No, so...
Is that why you're so covered in calluses?
I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. But no, I was always like the center of a lot of like family arguments. Just just the fight, like, oh, why do you treat her better than like my son, blah, blah, blah. But like, again, our family is like very close knit in the sense that like nothing can break our bond. On the good days, we're like the strongest family.
In Mongolia, do people live in a sort of communal household, like all in the same building? No?
No. Thank God, no. I would hate that because as much as I love my family, like they can be just the most dramatic bunch, right?
Sure. Like all families.
Yeah, like all families. But I mean, like I've had family fights break out, like because Mongolians drink a lot of alcohol and they tend to be like a very emotional bunch. So
give me an example of not necessarily of your family.
I'll be an open book with you.
No, but not of your family. But not necessarily. But a story of like just for somebody who has no frame of reference in Mongolia.
Yeah. Except
for the fact that in a few movies here and there, and then we'll get into you trying to teach me a couple of words and me going like, oh my goodness, but so in North America, I grew up in North America. A big scene is to have families outside fighting and whatever, and you got the trailer park and people fighting. And although I didn't live in a trailer park, but so is there that high drama? Give me an example of high drama. Oh
God, I don't even know where to begin. There's so many instances of that happening. So we have this. My grandma actually bought a giant piece of land outside in the countryside, and for some time she actually ran it as like a tourist camp situation. Okay. So she had like yurts and then like a little townhouse kind of vibe thing. So people would rent it out for like the day or like on the weekends.
Oh wow!
So our families would go there for the weekend. All of us, all the cousins, all the uncles and aunts. It's like a big family deal. So and we had a chef who cooked for us. He was a really cool guy. I thought of him as like a older brother kind of figure. Okay. So, eventually like the night progresses and everyone's playing poker and like I was really young. I think I was like 8 or 9.
Oh wow.
All my cousins were all really, really young as well at the time, right? And then I don't know, like we had just gone off to bed and like all the family, right? So my mom has 2 older sisters and a younger brother. So they were all present and so were their significant others. And before you know it, I just hear like glasses breaking and just people like yelling at each other. And I run down and then like I think all the sons-in-law were fighting. I think it started over something very minuscule. It's like a proper physical fight. And then at some point my uncle was like chasing my dad with a car, like trying to run him over. And then in the morning, like everyone was just back to normal. Like, yeah, like that was a fucking wild night. I'm like, you literally tried to murder my dad, but okay, like it's just, it is what it is, So that's why like now when I go to family gatherings and functions, I just absolutely hate it when they drink because like I've just seen too many cases of them like having like I don't know, I would say Mongolians are like a good mix of like Russians and Chinese. So you've got like the heavy alcoholism that's been taken over from the Soviet
Russian
Russians.
And Chinese,
and then you've got like the nationalistic, prideful, like characteristic from the Chinese, and then you mix it and you get like the Mongolians.
Right.
So it's not fun.
Okay, well, lots of stories.
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, I like language. I like accents. I like for somebody who hasn't heard Mongolian. So. I know this sounds like really ridiculous, right? Yeah. You speak to me in Mongolian. I'm going to speak to you in French or Hebrew. You decide,
cool.
And then we'll see what we're talking about.
Okay.
As beseda, I need a very takaka.
Би юусо чиний ярьж байгааг ойлгохгүй байна. Гэхдээ энэ бол надад айгу сонирхолтой.
Okay.
Би анх удаа ийм подкастт орж байгаа болохоор яг юу ярих уу мэдэхгүй байгаа. Гэхдээ сонирхолтой л юм байна.
Okay, אבל מה קורה עם האבא שלך פתאום רואה את לא יודע, הבן דוד שלך והוא נותן לו איזה סתירה?
юусо юу ч ялгаагүй.
מה?
Юу яриад байгааг би мэдэхгүй байна. Гэхдээ би одоо өөрөө яг бас юу ярих мэдэхгүй. Чи юу бодож байгааг ч бас мэдэхгүй байна л да. Гэхдээ
Okay. So how do I say? I was just talking about how your uncle, your father and your uncle were fighting, and he almost, uncle and your father and your cousin, he gave him a slap.
Uncle-in-law, I don't know, one of those guys.
So I don't know what you were talking about.
Yeah, I just said,
I mean, you're such an idiot.
Yeah, along the lines. I just thought, I've never done this before,
okay,
so it's pretty cool, yeah.
So how do you say thank you? Remember?
Baitla.
Baitla.
There's a lot of like, he, ha.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of twists.
How would you describe what your tongue and your mouth does to make that sound?
I don't know. It's just like
For example, when I speak about teaching people how to make the R sound in French, like rouge.
Rouge. Okay.
Very good. Rouge. So the je is
je.
You put the tongue between your teeth, almost touching your palate.
Yeah.
Like rouge.
Okay.
And you kind of also make your thing. So how would you explain that sound?
Okay, so to say thank you, I would break it down to bayar.
Bayar.
La.
Okay.
So if you put it together, when you construct it, it's bayar.
Okay.
Right? But then when you say it, bayar, you have to roll your tongue like.
Okay.
Like you have to do that like.
Okay, yeah.
So bayar.
Okay.
Bayar.
Okay.
Bayar.
Very nice. It is very nice.
Very
love
nice.
it. I love it so much. It is very good. Okay, so you grew up in Mongolia, went to international school, yeah?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
It was very opportunistic of me to be able to attend an international school.
Very lucky, yeah.
Yeah, especially because it was the only international school in Mongolia at the time.
Right.
So my classmates were like, whose parents were prime ministers and presidents and like oligarchies of Mongolia, right. And then there I am, just like a normal average family.
A country bumpkin.
Yeah, exactly, a country bumpkin. So I grew up like kind of not really fitting into the crowd because like these kids, I mean, like they came from like real wealth,
right?
But then Mongolians, they talk. It's so small, so you hear like their parents are crooks.
Oh wow!
Like they based their wealth off of like basically doing crooked shit,
right?
And then, but yeah, like that's where my international accent came from.
Nice. Okay.
I would say it's more American than anything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I've never lived in America,
right.
So. People have asked me if I'm Canadian. I'm like, nah, dude. Yeah. Like, nah, just.
But you studied in the UK.
Yeah, I did. I went to uni there.
Which?
Kingston Uni. It was a lowbrow piece of shit uni, but.
Yeah, sell it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not gonna front about it. Yeah.
So, let's go back to Mongolia. So, how would you describe your connection to the land? So, for example, I was born in Jerusalem, and famously in Judaism and in Israeli culture and all that stuff, it's like this. Like when people talk in Hebrew about going back to Israel, they don't say Israel; they say I'm going back to Haaretz, which means I'm going back to the land.
Oh wow!
That's sort of the word Haaretz.
Yeah.
Like the land.
Yeah.
So what are the cultural keys or tags that you would put to because you see that image of the plains is so dramatic.
Yeah. I don't know. For us, we're very spiritual people, right? So when we think of home, we think of it as like, again, the land, like the land of blue skies, clear blue skies. We say, oh, no piece of land, like nothing could ever beat what we grew up with, right? Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, there's a sense of like pride as well, but it's just, of course, going back home, yeah.
How is this different from somebody from Derby or from Birmingham
Yeah.
and goes back to the UK. Like, how's that different?
I don't think it's different at all. You know, it's just like where it's the connection, it's the root. You're going
Okay.
back to where you're from, so it's that sense of like, oh, I'm back home. It is what it is.
So when you made that photo,
Yeah.
on that plane, and also this one here, it's just with your phone,
Yeah,
or is it with a
just with
camera?
my phone.
Okay.
Just wanted to capture where I was at the time. No thought really goes behind into it.
I think it's funny that when I said, "Oh, send me some pictures," and you said,
Yeah.
"Oh, I only have memes."
Yeah, I just have a bunch of memes saved on my camera roll. Nothing fantastic that I could send. So this
Well,
is
this
the...
is good. This is, I mean, this is interesting.
Well, actually, I wanted to talk to you about like Mongolian culture a bit, because I think a lot of people like are fascinated.
And I have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Because I don't think a lot of people bump into a Mongolian just out of the blue, right?
For sure. For sure.
So yeah, I've had instances where people are like, "Oh wow, you're like literally the first and only Mongolian person I've met," and I'm like, I feel special.
Yeah,
I do
for
feel
sure.
special.
No,
Yeah, it's
no.
cool.
How many people live in Mongolia?
I would say roughly 3 million.
3 million.
Yeah.
The whole population
The
of
whole
the nation.
population.
3 million.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's small, yeah.
Yeah,
But then
okay.
our land size is fucking massive.
It
so,
is?
I'm used to space.
Right.
So
Would you say that Mongolia is the Canada of Asia?
I don't think I would ever say that.
You know, massive country, small population. Okay.
No, I wouldn't. I've never said that.
Sorry. No, you wouldn't be an idiot like me. That's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, massive territory. Small. How much of it is desert? How much of it is like plains?
We do have the Gobi Desert, I think, which is like the second largest desert in the world. I'm not sure. I'm not really good at geography,
Sure,
but
okay.
majority of it is plainlands,
Okay.
and then you've got like giant mountains. And I have actually never had the chance to fully discover my home. You know, I tend to just stay within like my own area.
Sure.
But when we do like road trips and stuff, you know, you drive for like 10 hours, there's no proper road, so you really have to have like a GPS, because like it just looks the same, you know,
Right.
like you could easily get lost, but
Okay.
somehow my dad like just knows where to go. It's like
Okay.
Mongolians have like an innate sense of like direction or
Sure.
something, I don't know. But yeah, it's cool. Like I grew up, I think my childhood was very different to like my husband's, for example, because he's a city kid.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm a city kid, like my childhood was basically compromised of like Mongolia just coming out of like communism, and then like everything was up for grabs. So
So, what was your experience as a kid?
yeah,
Growing up, seeing that, like,
I think at the time I just thought it was normal, you
Sure.
know. But looking back, probably it was a strange way to grow up. You know, it was just.
was there military or was there?
There was no military, nothing. No, just people just grabbing whatever they can and then trying to, because you know everything was once belonged to the state, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everything. And the way my grandma was able to make her money was just to bid on like a piece of property.
Oh,
And then she got the property, but then like it burnt down, and then it went into auction, and then she had to like bid for it again, and
Oh,
people
wow.
were just trying to like get anything they could get their hands on, right? But yeah, I don't know, like my grandfather was a prime minister of infrastructure or something, so I would say my family was more well off than like your typical Mongolian family at the time.
sure.
So he was a diplomat. He got to like experience so many different countries. So I just remember my childhood being like my grandparents always going off to like different countries, and
Okay.
then whenever they come back, like all of our family members would like be waiting, and
All
then
these gifts.
all those gifts, yeah, like just she would just call out like names, right? Like, oh, this is yours, this is yours, and we're
That's
like,
awesome.
it was just amazing, yeah. And
Well,
then
like my uncle, although I was living in Canada,
Yeah.
my uncle was a sailor, and so he'd travel. He'd come to Hong Kong. He'd
Yeah.
go all over the world, and he'd come back to Israel. And he'd have all these gifts.
Yeah.
But it was like cream cheese. Philadelphia cream cheese. And it'd be like, okay.
well, I
So
think my grandparents' gifts were a little bit more extravagant than a cream cheese, but nonetheless, I just remember like my childhood mostly spending time with my grandparents a lot, because my parents had me when they were quite young, so they
Right.
still wanted to like have a bit of their youth, which I was completely happy with, you know.
Okay.
So my grandparents would constantly just drive off to the countryside and like spend time with their friends, would camp out. One time we were camping out and we had all our meat stolen by wild dogs.
Oh, wow.
It was just things like that. And we would go travel out maybe like 6 hours from the city to Mother Rock. So it's literally a piece of rock that's just in the middle of nowhere, and it's shaped like older woman, I guess. And then they would have like these giant stubbles, like rocks everywhere, which people would call it as like her herd of animals, right? And then the women would go there. They would pay their like, I don't know, pay their dues. I don't know what you say it, but then they would whisper in her right ear just things that they would want.
Okay.
And so I guess my mom was having like difficulty conceiving me at the time, so she went to Mother Rock and then like asked for a child.
How old? She was young though.
She was young,
How
yeah.
old was she?
I don't know, like 23, 24.
23, 24.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble conceiving. I've been trying for a month.
For real, like at that time, like already it was considered like super
Right.
late to be having a kid,
Right,
because
right,
Mongolians, like they jump into it very
Sure,
early on.
sure.
So yeah, then she went to Mother Rock, asked to have a baby. A month later, she had me. I don't know if it's correlated, but then my grandma was like, "Oh, you're the product of like Mother Rock, so you have to go and pray to her and go visit her." And so like I grew up thinking this shit was real, right?
Sure,
and
sure.
A part of me still thinks it's real,
Sure.
because, you know, like, how can you not when you're just constantly surrounded by that? And we have like shamans, religious shamans who like dress up like beasts, and then they sit there and then they like, I don't know, call in some type of like, I don't know. It's just
So does it ever happen where, you know, like right now we're on the 10th floor of an office in Wanchai.
yeah.
When we look out the window, there's like building, all these like, you know, 30, 40 story tall buildings just right there. Is there ever moments where you kind of feel this weird kind of like, where the juxtaposition just kind of feels...
Yeah. No, all the time. All the time. Because, like, to me, I'm still that, like, little nomadic kid. I mean, I'm not a nomad by any means, but I still heavily relate to my culture.
Sure.
And I definitely am very nationalistic, but I'm not gonna, like, beat my chest and, like, scream it, right?
Right.
So, to me, like, I'm forever grateful for having, like, the opportunity to come live in, like, Hong Kong, and have lived in the UK. So, like, there are days when I just look back and I'm like, wow, like, I can't believe I get to witness, like, this.
Okay, so when was the last time you were back in Mongolia?
December, before
okay.
the whole
Right.
coronavirus stuff.
Wow.
So I don't know when I can actually go back home again, because they're
Sure.
just completely closed the borders until a vaccination's ready.
But are you still talking to your folks and stuff a lot?
Yeah, of course, every day, because I'm an only child. So
Oh,
my
okay.
mom is like very attached to me.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Must
even
be
if
hard.
I'm not constantly video calling her, I still have to like message her every day.
It must be very hard for your parents or for your whole family. Wow.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes I feel a little bit guilty, because like I'm out here and I'm trying to like make a name for myself and like have my own life outside my family, but I do have like a sense of guilt sometimes, like, oh, why did I abandon my family? Like, I don't know. Like,
listen,
family
it's
tends to
just
do
life.
that.
It's just
Yeah,
life,
it's just
you know.
life. I'm trying to come to terms with it.
Yeah. When you think back, because one of the things that I've realized, and just in terms of who you are, it becomes very apparent that your Mongolian identity is a very clear part of how you express yourself and all that stuff. So if there's one or two things that in your mind, either image or moment, or that symbolically, it really symbolizes something powerful for you, what would that be? Is there a moment, or is it a time, or food?
I don't know. Like, I've never really had that thought, actually. And just, to me, I've just always been a Mongolian, you know?
Right.
Just
What's
where
that
I'm
mean?
from. To me, I can't really put it into words, because, like, my husband tells me, oh, like, I never thought I would be married to a Mongolian. But then I'm like, why? Like, I'm just a Mongolian. Like,
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Like, I'm just another person like you. But I guess to some people, like, they can't comprehend ever, like, they don't think about Mongolia, right? It's like such a random exotic
Are there
place.
misconceptions that you've seen in movies or in books or?
Oh yeah, like Mulan, for example.
Mulan?
Like we were like vilified. I think, you know. It's cool because I've never actually felt any representation in like popular media growing up. Only in Mulan were we like featured as the bad guys, and yeah, I guess like from the Chinese perspective we were the bad guys.
Sure.
But now with like the world so like interconnected, it's cool. We have like the Who, which is a Mongolian folk rock band, and they've garnered like 40 million views on like their song. So like to see that kind of, oh okay, now we're being noticed, because I think we're always like a few years behind on these trends. I don't know, but I'm still not completely in touch with the art scene and stuff that's happening in Mongolia, but I can see from my friends like they're really coming to terms with like their own artistic integrity, and they're like tying in our cultural heritage and like our traditional dresses, and they're turning it into like streetwear. Nice. Like that shit's so cool to me, right? I'm like, yeah, like I completely support this. That's 100%. Really cool.
Why aren't you wearing it?
I don't know. Why am I not wearing it? I should be fucking sporting it. Yeah.
No, I love it. You know, just you talking, I was thinking about like what my growing up was, right? From the age of 1. So basically, I grew up in Montreal. Yeah. You know, South Shore. So right now, in not the shadow, but in terms of the conversation, the social conversation around racism, and you know, certainly in the U.S., Black Lives Matter. A couple of things that my experience led me to think about that is one, in a way, I was growing up, I was just me, but because my parents are North African, from Morocco, and I was quite dark as a kid in Quebec, the parents would, you know, yell, "Oh, get that nigger," you know, like, oh wow, yeah, like they just assumed that I was black, and then, for example, when I worked at the Human Rights Commission, one thing I realized was, in a way, your identity is in response to what people call you. So I had some people say, "Oh, you're gay. You're totally gay." I'm like, I'm not gay. No, you have to be gay. You have to be gay. You wear skirts. You have to be gay. I'm like, I'm not gay. But it's like after a while, with enough people saying that, I'm just like, am I gay? Maybe I am.
Maybe you are.
For a second. No, no, not for me. Thank you. But
well, you gotta try it out at least once, right?
Kind of scares me. So, in view of that. Like, how, when you grew up, in terms of discrimination, in terms of you look Chinese but different. Like, you definitely do not look, certainly not Southern China, like in a Hong Kong face. Yeah. What is your perception coming up to discrimination or whatever been like? In England, most likely. I don't know.
I don't know. I think all Mongolians feel a little bit of like inferiority complex. They do have a bit of that. I think it's because like there's this notion like people from Mongolia are all like nomads, like they're just running around living in yurts and riding their horses, and to us like we're just normal kids who grew up with like a normal family. We went to like private education, we grew up in an apartment, we had cars, so like having to, I don't know, maybe justify like, oh, we're not what you think we are. We're not, I don't know, just most people tend to think Mongolians live in a certain way. Right. So, I don't know, that has always been a thing. Like, oh, I don't know, like, I'm not poor, you know, I'm not like that thing that you think I am. Like, I'm actually like decent. Like, my family is proper, we're educated, it's not what you think it is. But the older I get, the more like proud I am of like who I am, you know?
Well, okay, so in Hong Kong, you would just be perceived as a normal Hong Konger. Yeah. Right? But do you speak Cantonese?
No, I don't. So, I just speak a little bit of Mandarin.
Right.
Yeah, but that's about it.
Okay. But do you ever get, like, poo-pooed, or do you ever get hit?
Oh, they hate me. They hate me because, like, I don't speak Cantonese, so cab drivers, when I talk to them in in English, they think, like, I'm just, like, a rich, snobby local kid who refuses to speak Cantonese, or for some reason, I hate that. Yeah, and I also hate not being able to, like, relate to the people that I'm living like in close proximity with, and like in terms of culture. Like, I'm really trying to adapt, right? But language is such a critical element of that.
And Cantonese is really very hard to get into.
And I find it hard to connect with some locals because I do think they tend to kind of stick within themselves.
Sure.
Especially in the Hive, you know, I've had locals just not like me very much just because I speak English and don't really understand the culture. I've had that situation.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm like, I'm really into your culture. Like, I love your food. I love Hong Kong.
But they just see the outside, right?
They see it.
Yeah,
they see me as like, oh, them. And then they're like, this is us, and this is them, the expats, and then this is us. Sure. I don't know. Like, that's just my experience.
No. Well, you are an expat.
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Like me.
Yeah. Like
you
us.
and I were the same.
Yeah.
Of all the pictures that you could have sent me, you sent me these two as representative. Mm-hmm. I find it interesting that the first one is a landscape that is empty of people.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's not a portrait. Mm-hmm. So the Mongolian identity has nothing to do with people. Mm-hmm. Right? Like in the photographs, there are no people. Yeah.
That is what it is. Like, you go to Mongolia, you just see that. It's just empty land, and it will stretch on for miles. And there are days when, you know, nomadic families, their next door neighbor is like 2 kilometers away or some shit. Like, that's just life.
Sure.
So then that's where our, like, hospitality comes from. We've always been like, okay, if a random rider comes in, you don't know them, you still offer them a place to sleep, you still offer them food, you still offer them something to drink. It's just that, like, Mongolian hospitality, because it's so rare that you would just randomly bump into someone. So, I don't know, like...
Is there an experience that you had where you're outside and you bumped into that kind of hospitality?
Not with the city folks, no. City folks have become, I would say, you know, they've just become...
Like all city folks.
Yeah, like all city folks. But that hospitality is still very much present with, like, nomadic families in Mongolia. I mean, there's, like... still a heavy culture of people hurting their animals, and then literally their entire livestock is their life, right? Right.
That's their
the
wealth.
Food they come from, the clothes they wear, the money, all comes from, like, those animals that they herd. And then every summer they change places and they start, like, gathering stock for, like, the winter, preparing. If I, for example, a city folk would just drive out into, like, the middle of nowhere and there's just a family there, I can go in and they'll still feed me. Yeah. They'll still get to know me, and then they'll put, like, dairy products and stuff, and then make sure, like, I go off to my next journey, whatever. Right. Like, that stuff is still very present. Yeah.
What is the grossest thing you ever came up with?
What do you mean?
What is the grossest thing that, you know, if you're like, you're just like, you know what? That's part of my culture. That's just kind of gross.
I don't know. What gross? Like, when we would just skin animals alive, I guess, and we would call it horhak. So that's when you choose, like, a sheep or whatever, and then, like, the men have to, like, skin it alive, and then the women...
Skin it alive?
Literally, well, not alive. I don't know what they do. No,
is it alive or not?
I think they, like, do something to, like, paralyze it. I don't know. Women are not technically supposed to look at the ritual, but I've always, like, peeked and stuff. I don't know what actually goes onto it. Okay. But what the women have to do is, like, they have to wash all the intestines and stuff, and then, like, you would have, like, the poop coming out. So I guess that's the grossest thing.
That's pretty gross.
I don't know. Yeah, it's pretty gross, but
that hits it.
To me, it's just like, it's just part of life. Yeah, it's just like, and then you make the food in like a steel bucket. Okay. And then you put, like, stones in there, and then you just over, like, firewood, let it roast or whatever, and then you just eat it. You just put potatoes, carrots, and then you eat it, and it's just so good.
Lots of butter.
No butter.
No butter?
Our diet is just strictly meat and, like, very little presence of vegetables, I guess. But
no butter?
No butter. No.
Okay.
Nothing.
Interesting.
Like that. Okay. That's why, like, we're such big people there. I mean, like...
tall?
Yeah. I would say the average Mongolian's quite tall, yeah. Okay. Like, I mean, in comparison to, like, other Southeast Asian countries.
As you go up north... You get taller.
Yeah, people. And I think it's, like, climate-wise as well. We have to be a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about music? What about... So, did you, as growing up, were you expected to have to...
Nah, dude. No, we were chill.
You were just like...
Yeah.
We're good. So, when was the first time you had some vodka?
Oh, gosh. I think it was like last Friday.
No, not the last time you had vodka. When was it? How old were
time.
you the first time that you were?
Actually, you know what? Like I told you, I'm more of a smoker than I'm a drinker. It's probably because I grew up witnessing like alcoholism just ravage my country, right? It's been an issue for so many families, and it's actually the one thing I hate about my culture is like the dependency on alcohol, because there's so little things for people my age to do other than to drink, right? Because corruption's so fucking bad there.
Wow.
So I grew up kind of detesting it.
Sure.
But you know, like obviously in high school, like your friends, like you're at school, like let's go out drinking. So I would have an occasional like vodka shots every night. I don't know, like.
No, I understand. Listen, I mean,
15, 16.
Same. Like in Canada, yeah. So basically, Mongolian is written in Russian script.
Yeah.
Now,
actually, we had our own scripture.
Yeah.
It looked a lot like Arabic, but it was like horizontal.
Okay.
No, sorry, vertical.
Okay.
And then I think during World War II, Soviets came in, blah, blah, blah. My Mongolian history is horrible, by the way.
It's
so
okay. I'm also putting you on the spot.
Yeah,
so
might want to fact check me on this, but you know, they came in and like basically Soviets just tried to get rid of our heritage, like everything that made us Mongolians.
Right.
But I think the scripture thing, but now we go by Russian acrylic. It's like Abe Vegete. So I think the last of my generation, it would be like my grandfather who knows how to write traditional Mongolian scripture, but otherwise it's
I love that you're telling me about Mongolian and about the Russians coming in to sort of impose this new scripture, and you're telling me all this shit with an American accent.
It's fucking wild.
And we're in Hong Kong.
Yeah, and you're like Israeli, French,
Canadian, whatever. You know, who cares?
What are you?
It's a big soup. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you think what Mongolia needs is more attention, more people, more visitors, more tourists, or do you feel it's more about what Mongolia needs to do is somehow sort out their own?
We have plenty of issues that we haven't even begun to discuss yet. We're very complicit in the fact that we are just okay with the corruption, right? Like, we know what's happening. Right. We know our law enforcement shit, our welfare system shit, our politicians are shit. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I literally had a classmate of mine in high school. He was like, oh, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. Still figuring it out. You? And he's like, oh, I want to go into politics. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Why? He's like, I want to make some fucking money, man. Like, this is the kind of like mentality. Right. It's like you go into politics. Our politics is a fucking shit show, right? You talk to any Mongolian, eventually it will go to this topic. Oh, okay. So every election, one person gets elected, then they kick out whoever the current party are. Right. And then they bring in their own people, their cousins, their family members, their friends, fucking whatever. They go in, they take like big government projects that's like supposed to implement like infrastructure and all that stuff. And then they're like, oh yeah, I'm currently working on a project. And then they're just like embezzling it, basically embezzling money. And then they fuck off. We all know the politicians have like, you know, offshore accounts in Switzerland. They all have like giant apartments in like New York City, but we don't give a fuck because why? Like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we can do nothing about it. It's like, you know what the fuck is going on, right? And then there's like a huge brain drain going on. Sure. People
Such as you coming to Hong
Kong. Exactly. Like, I'm complicit too. But eventually I hope that one day I can go back home when the opportunity presents itself.
When COVID dies down.
Yeah, maybe. Or like in the future, 10, 15 years from now on. But like, obviously I'm also part of the problem, right? Sure. Like, I'm part of the youth, but I just move away to a different country. It's there. The problem.
It's very complex. Look, I mean, I left Canada. I'm in Hong Kong. We're seeing all of this under the umbrella shadow of what's been going on politically that people are even afraid to mention, you know, in terms of the security law. So just like, oh my goodness, you know, it's like
But I think like there's just a political problem everywhere, right? Like you can go back to Canada and you will be able to see problems in your government. And then,
have you ever been to Canada?
No, I actually haven't.
It's very polite. It's very
Yeah,
clean.
I
It's
heard.
very ordered. It's very sweet.
I would love to go there. Actually,
Nice people.
Yeah.
Look,
A boot.
what?
A boot.
A boot. A boot. Okay,
A
so a
boot.
boot. Do I say it that way too?
I don't know.
say
I
about.
haven't noticed. Yeah, you say about.
Yeah.
American.
The Americans. Okay, so look, like what? Let's leave on a high note for beautiful, stunning Mongolia.
You should come visit. Actually,
Of course, I'd love to. Yeah, for sure.
there's
But
tons of opportunities to take some landscape photos for you.
Well-
Shooting it raw.
in the perfect world, what would you love to see come out for Mongolia to really celebrate what it is? Because it's weird to be. I think that to have a national identity, to feel this insecurity or whatever you want to call it, but how would you like to see Mongolia assert itself?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't want too much international attention on Mongolia because I like that it is what it is, you know, like it's this little place in between Russia and China that people don't know too much of. Like there's a sense of mystery behind it, but I just want people to treat like they say like, oh, this is my home. We gotta like, we're so rooted in like the nature and the land, but I just want people to like take care of it. You know? There's so much pollution. There's so much trash. People just, you know, when they go out camping, they just leave all their trash behind. I just want them to like regard it as like the precious home that it is, if they really think of it that way, and just really take care of it. That's all I want. And then, you know, stop with the corruption.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, just maybe like make it a little bit more pristine so that maybe we can have like more tourists and like offer more career options for people to get out of poverty. Like help other Mongolians up, because like the wealth income disparity is massive. It's not okay. Like Mongolians are awesome people, like if you go there, but as long as they're stuck in poverty, like this alcoholism issue will never be solved. So just solve their own issues first before they aim big.
I got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfectly good high note. Let's end with touching elbows and call it a show. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, Randall Fancy, for this episode of Shooting It Raw. I really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about the show in general or today's guest in particular, be sure to check out the episode notes at www.shootingraw.com. That's shooting-it-raw.com. I appreciate everyone who takes some time out of their day to give Shooting It Raw a listen. So get out there, make amazing photos, and be sure to appreciate how amazing the world is.